Hasn't it?
I'm just like a normal person seeing it.
Right, okay. All right, don't worry. Afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining. If you've not been to one of my webinars before, I'm Lee. I'm from Everything Tech, and we're a Manchester-based managed service provider looking after everything around Microsoft Modern Workplace and Office 365. Just a little bit of housekeeping first of all. Ben is hopefully my glamorous assistant today, and he'll be answering questions in the Q&A. We will be answering questions throughout the webinar, hopefully, if Ben's got connected, and we'll hang around for a few minutes after the meeting to answer any questions. And if you don't catch us, then you've all got my email address, so you're more than welcome to drop me a mail after the webinar, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. So today we're going to be talking about Microsoft Business Voice. It's the latest generation in telephony from Microsoft. Let's make this presentation full screen. There we go. Like I say, we're a managed service provider. We specialise in this Microsoft Business Voice and modern workplace stuff. We've done over 200 Office 365 migrations. We've now got about 56. We've got exactly 56 customers on various versions of the Microsoft Teams Business Voice platform, some through direct with Microsoft, some through a thing called direct routing. The direct routing path allows you to integrate your existing telephony platform. So if you've got an Avaya phone system, you can use a little bit of the Avaya and a little bit of Microsoft Teams. And it's really good for companies that don't want to take the whole jump and leap into Microsoft Teams yet, and you want to run their existing platform alongside it. We've got 10 Microsoft Cloud productivity engineers here at Everything Tech, and we're about 10 years old this year, and offices sort of across the country to marry up with the fact that we've got clients up and down the country as well. So just a little bit of background on Microsoft Business Voice. I know some of the people that are attending the webinar today are technical, and some of them business owners and sort of decision makers. There's been a couple of iterations of telephony platform over the last 5 years or so. So if you've got an old existing phone system with a black phone on your desk, then that could be one of two things. It could be what's called PSTN, which is a standard phone line, which also includes ISDN. So I'm getting a bit technical and nerdy here for those of you that aren't technical. But they're the old style phone systems where you break out to the public telephone network. Then sort of more recently, we moved over to this thing called VoIP, which is where your phone calls actually go over the internet. So you've got a telephony platform with a black phone on your desk, typically, a little bit like the one over my shoulder, one of these shoulders. I'm not sure which one it'll be for you guys. And essentially, you can plug that in anywhere on the internet and it'll work like a phone. And so it's a bit more flexible, works over the internet, and it's the sort of de facto standard in voice technology these days. So not too many of you will be using that old style ISDN system, but I know BT going to retire it by 2025. So you're most likely getting calls from BT or BT local business at the moment trying to get you to upgrade to some kind of VoIP platform. And VoIP's fine, you know, it does a job, and it's become an incredibly saturated market, and everybody's offering it. But now we're moving into this next generation of telephony. It's called UC, or Unified Communications, and the world is moving to marry up the computer platform, so instant messaging and Teams meetings, with voice as well. And Microsoft are making a massive effort with that by releasing this thing called Business Voice, and it's heavily integrated. It's completely integrated into Microsoft Teams. Now, the beauty of this is that it's a software solution, and the big benefit that people get from that is that if you bought a phone system 7, 8, 9 years ago, you're stuck with that hardware and that software. Really, there's no real option to upgrade. Whereas these new UC solutions, because they're totally software based and you just use a headset, then it means that the software can be upgraded and you can take advantage of those features. And certainly over the past 12 months, Microsoft have been piling features into their business voice platform to try and bring it up to standard. And right from the word go, it included most of the features that you need, but certainly over the last year and accelerated over the past 10 weeks because of COVID-19, they're throwing features into Microsoft Business Voice, and we think it's a fantastic platform. So just moving on to some of the features of Microsoft Business Voice. So as you would expect from any modern phone system, each user is allocated a DDI, or a direct dial extension. And when you go through the provisioning process, Microsoft will allow you to allocate DDI numbers from a pool of numbers that you choose. And they're separated by geography, and the vast majority of major towns and cities are included. So if you want a chunk of 0161 numbers or a chunk of 0208 numbers, that's absolutely fine, and you can define the numbers that you choose from any sort of major town and city across the world, really. In addition to everybody having their own number, you would normally allocate a main number or several main numbers to the business. So you might have 0161743, 8000, and then all the direct dial extensions will be 8001, 8002, 8003. And you can port numbers in as well. So if you've got existing telephone numbers, they can be brought quickly and easily into the Microsoft platform so that you can retain those numbers. And when you set the system up, you can allocate temporary numbers to people, and afterwards you can overlay those imported numbers. So quite often when we do migrations, we'll divert the original numbers to the new numbers until we can get the porting process through, and then eventually people will just have their old numbers. Okay, so bringing numbers in is fairly straightforward. There's fantastic auto attendant options. So as you would expect, when people hit your number, you can have press 1 for this and press 2 for that. But not only do you have to have that at the high level, at the highest level, you can also have an auto attendant at the next level down. So for example, if we said you ring everything tech, you get the main number, press 1 for support, 2 for sales, 3 for accounts, that kind of thing. And then when you actually get through to accounts, you could have a separate auto attendant that said, press 1 for accounts payable and 2 for accounts receivable. And actually you can have different background music, different hold music for each one of those auto attendant cues. So you might have different hold music, for example, for sales than you do for customer services, because you've got a different type of person, perhaps in a different mood at each level. So that's a really important feature that's actually missing from some of the cloud-based providers. That's something that Microsoft have done really well with. Like I say, hold music can be uploaded, and the options to go through to different people can be uploaded via WAV, MP3 or WMA, and you can choose to record them yourself and upload the file, or you can have it done professionally. It costs around 200 quid to have an options menu done, for example, by a professional organisation, and they'll send you lots of different voice clips, so you can choose the voice that you want, and then they'll help you write a script to get that right. Call delivery can be based on lots of different options. So I really like this. So you can have a round robin, which means that when a call comes in for a support, for example, it can whip round the various people in your organization. You can have it done sequentially. So it starts with this person, then it moves on to this person, then it moves on to that person. You can ring a group of people together, so that's supported. But probably my favorite feature is presence-based. So if you're not already using Microsoft Teams, certainly if you are using Microsoft Teams, you'll be aware of this thing called presence. Presence means that if you walk away from your keyboard and you get set away, or you set yourself as busy or do not disturb, then you won't receive calls. So you're never going to have, in a call center environment, for example, you're never going to have this situation where people walk away from their desk and go to the loo and their phone is ringing and bothering everybody. You know, that's something that's covered well by this presence feature. Obviously, calls with Microsoft Business Voice can be delivered to your laptop. I just use my AirPods, for example, as my headset. But the mobile phone apps, so the iOS and Android apps for tablets and phones, are absolutely brilliant for Microsoft Teams, and calls could be delivered there. So presence-based routing is possibly one of my favorite features of the Business Voice solution, because everybody understands how to set themselves away from the out of office thing. There's some absolutely cracking call center options that you can do in the admin interface, so that you can prevent people from clicking cancel to calls. So in a call center environment, you might get that where people cherry pick calls, and that's something that you can administratively prevent. So quite a nice feature as well. In terms of hardware, we're moving away now from black pieces of plastic on people's desks, and the vast majority of people will just use a headset in conjunction with Microsoft Business Voice. So there are tons and tons of different options out there, but you need to be aware that they need to be the MS. Usually there'll be some kind of something to signify that they are the Microsoft voice platform compatible. So Poly and Logitech and all the vendors, they have a specific range, and you know, mainly they'll support answering and cancelling and putting calls on mute while you're in call. So that'll be the difference between the Microsoft certified versions. You can do that, you know, answer and end calls using a button on your device. So it's quite important that you know, if you are going to go out and buy headsets, that you get the correct ones. They sort of start to come about 80 quid. For those people that don't want to use a headset and you want to use a traditional telephone, you can get, this is a Yealink model. They sort of start at £80 for a 2-line monochrome display. This is their top of the line model. It's called a VP59, and it's a fully integrated Microsoft Teams handset. So there's a camera on top with a slider for privacy, and this is an 8-inch high resolution touchscreen. So you get a 4K camera, you get an 8-inch touchscreen, and these can be anything from the desk for an individual right up to a small huddle room. The camera's quite wide angle, so you can get telephones, and a lot of people still prefer to have a handset that you pick up, and they start at 80 quid and go up to about 450. I think this one retails at about £438. So a really good wide range of hardware available for the Microsoft Teams platform, and it's getting better all the time. More and more vendors are able to support it. One thing that's going to be particularly popular post the COVID-19 situation is room solutions. And we're getting tons and tons of enquiries for room solutions at the moment. So a room solution is where you know, if you're going to have more and more meetings via Teams and Zoom, then when you do start to get back into the office, it's going to be really important that you have a professional setup in order to have those meetings. So, you know, meeting over video is the next best thing to meeting people face to face. And your organization is going to want to show people that you've got a professional setup and that it looks good. As you can see behind me, this is the Yealink MVC 500 system. So we've got a big TV on the wall. The system comes with a little mini PC, a little touch display, a really high definition camera and a sound bar and all the gubbins that goes behind it. And that's for a meeting room of sort of up to about 12 people. There's smaller solutions for smaller meeting rooms, so some that are specifically designed for meeting rooms with 4 people, and they've got a really extremely wide angle camera, and they can detect when people walk into the room to change the camera angle. And then there's an MVC 800, for example, that come with better cameras for seeing over a longer distance. And I think they all come with these little Bluetooth microphones, so you can position those around the room so that you get the best audio experience for people that are listening. So some great, you know, loads. We mainly work with Yealink and Poly. Most of the systems support Zoom and Teams these days. So they come in like a dual boot scenario so that you can use both platforms, because people want, you know, everyone's got a sort of preference on platform. So some great room solutions available for Microsoft Teams Business Voice. So what does it cost to get enabled into the system? Well, actually, the price is really competitive. There's some well-established VoIP brands out there, people like RingCentral, who charge around £12 per user per month. But theirs is a traditional voice platform where you need a desk phone, and it's not integrated into the Microsoft Teams platform. You know, part of the reason that Microsoft do these things is because they want to bring everybody into their Teams platform and have them use a single pane of glass all of the time. So it costs £12 per user per month, and you bolt it onto your existing Office 365 subscription. So if you've got a business premium, which the vast majority of people will have that at least, you can add on the business voice feature for £12 per user per month. And like I say, it's very comparable to everybody else that's in the market at the moment. Included in that, you get 1,200 domestic minutes, and those minutes are pooled. So if you've got 10 users, you get 12,000 minutes, and everybody can dip in. So if you've got a user that uses far more minutes than somebody else, that's fine. It's not going to get to 1,200 for the person that uses their phone a lot and then start charging. It's pooled based on the amount of users. The conference call facility is included in the business voice license now, which means that when you create a Teams meeting, if you've got people that want to dial in from overseas using a standard telephone or a mobile phone, you will get offered an 0161 or a non-geographic number that people can call for cheap call rates. So that's a nice little feature as well. You know, a lot of companies will use external services like Powwow Now that charge people a lot for conference calls. So now you can just create a Teams meeting. Most people will join over the Teams platform as more people get engaged with it. But people that want to use just a telephone and ring a telephone number, they'll also be able to call at a national rate, which is relatively cheap. Okay, the bad news. There's a few things that are still missing from Microsoft Business Voice. And they're still quite important things. Microsoft are hurling features into Business Voice, and their development has increased significantly during the COVID-19 crisis, with things like adding more people to available to see at the same time in Teams. I know that's going up to 7x7 shortly, so it'll be the equivalent of Zoom. Call recording is still missing. Now, there is some light at the end of the tunnel with call recording. We've been speaking to a vendor this week that are going to be offering it. Their offering is very expensive because it's very sophisticated. So, for example, their offering includes a solution that can detect the users or the caller's voice patterns to decide whether they're happy or unhappy, so that calls can be routed to managers or supervisors if they feel that the call's going bad. So these are there's lots of sophisticated features in them. At the moment, they're looking like they're going to cost about £20 per user per month, which is super expensive. But I'm guessing that as the time goes on, the market's going to get saturated with people that are able to provide basic call recording to Microsoft Business Voice. There is some call reporting via the Teams Admin Center. So you can log in to the Microsoft Teams Admin Center and you can get some basic information like who's answered the most calls and who's been on the phone the longest, those kind of things. But it does spit out some nice reports into Excel. But at the moment, it's just that. There's no generic out-of-the-box wallboard in Business Voice. So that's disappointing for right now for people that have got small call centers. And the same thing for wallboards as well. There's actually not a wallboard available for Microsoft Business Voice if you take it direct from Microsoft. Just one of the things that I missed off my slide earlier when it comes to features. One of my favorite features about Microsoft Business Voice is that extension numbers have become a thing of the past. So for those of you that have got extension numbers in SharePoint or printed sheets with hundreds of extension numbers on, then that is a thing of the past, because when you receive calls, you can transfer them just via the person's name. Now, here's a really important little tip. If you've got a situation where you've got a receptionist who receives all the external calls and then in turn transfers them to users, you could, in theory, set it up so you have, in a business of 50 people, for example, you could set it up so that one person receives calls, has a business voice licenses, and then transfers those calls via Teams to the individuals. Okay, now that does work. We've tested it and it works perfectly. So the other people don't have to have a license. Now, obviously, they won't be able to call people back. They won't be able to transfer the call out once they've got it. And they won't be able to dial out themselves. But if you just want a situation where you've got somebody receiving calls and then dishing them out to other people, then you do only actually have to have one business voice license. So if you're in a situation that can take advantage of that, there could be some significant cost savings there for you. So we've got about 25 minutes there. I tend to keep my webinars to about 25 to 35 minutes, try and keep people awake. If you've got any questions specifically about Microsoft Business Voice, if you want to come back to me and talk about any of the features that are and aren't included, I'd be happy to answer those questions for you. Anything you need, you've got my email address, just drop me an email. I hope that was really useful for everybody, and hope to speak to you soon.